Morning, happy Wednesday. Lots of yawns from us. We were out late last night at National Night Out. It was a lot of fun.
It was a little warm.
It was really hot. Not even the kind of warm.
It was gross.
It was disgusting out.
Yeah.
But lots of families and lots of people, and it was great to see everyone.
Yes.
I think Doug made a big hit. There were a lot of people who took pictures with Doug.
Yes. And we got to meet some new people. So that's always fun.
So this week we're talking about probate.
Yes.
So Lindsay, who has to go through probate?
Oh my goodness. So let's start with what is probate. So probate is the court process that someone must go through when they pass away in order to distribute any assets that are titled in their name alone. So the key takeaways there are, it is a court process. It is for after somebody passes away, and your probate estate is what is included is anything that you own at the time of your death solely in your name. It does not include any accounts or policies that have a beneficiary designation. Those will get paid directly to the beneficiary as long as the beneficiary is over the age of 18. If you have minor children named, as a lot of people do on their retirement accounts or life insurance policies, then that actually does get pulled back into the probate process because minors are not legally allowed to inherit. So anything else you have, though, in your own name is part of that estate, that probate estate. And probate is where the court's job there is to name somebody to administer your estate, to be in charge of handling all of those things, making sure that any expenses, any debts get paid, and then distributing whatever is left over to whoever is legally entitled to get it. So if you don't have a will, then I think we talked before about how the state law is going to decide who gets what. If you do have a will, your will still goes through probate. We get that question a lot. I have a will. Do I still go through probate? Wills, by their very design, have to go through probate because the court needs to validate that will, make sure it was properly signed, make sure everything's there that needs to be there, and then make sure that your assets get distributed according to your wishes that you've laid out in your will. That's the nutshell.
Yeah. And so probate, because of this, right? Probate in Maryland is not difficult, right? As a process.
Right.
Maryland is considered an easy probate state. It is really just administrative.
Yes.
And jumping through lots of administrative hoops, following the process. The process takes anywhere from 8 months is probably the fastest probate. To more likely 12 to 18 months. And part of that is, Lindsay mentioned paying creditors. There's a 6-month creditor claim period built into the process. And so there's a 6-month wait for creditors to make their claims. And you're not just sitting around twiddling your thumbs for the most part, right?
Yeah.
You are.
Sometimes you are.
Sometimes, if there isn't a whole lot in the probate estate.
Right.
But using that time to gather assets and create the asset inventory and the accounting. And then the accounting has to be submitted to the court and updated every 6 months. Again, simple, but
it's not, once you're used to doing them, then, sorry, we're getting a call. Once you're used to doing the accountings, they're much easier. But I know the first time I did an accounting, and I think you too, it's really confusing and you're not sure because there's like 7 different forms that you have to fill out and everything has to balance. And the court has to then approve what you've submitted. And sometimes that can be a very particular process. And depending on who you get as your auditor, they may be more lenient. Some are more lenient than others. Some want very detailed descriptions of every single thing. So it's one of those processes that the more you do it, the easier it gets, which is why attorneys work well for this. But when you're doing it for the first time and you don't live in this world, it can be very overwhelming. And it's a lot of paperwork, a lot of deadlines, a lot of things that you're not used to doing. Like, why do I have to report this? What does this mean? I don't understand this term. And the Register of Wills is very good about telling you what forms to file, but they can't tell you how to fill them out. That's giving legal advice. And so that's where I think people get in trouble when they're trying to do this by themselves. Is it sounds simple, you just fill out the forms, but if you don't fill them out correctly, it can have some really bad unintended consequences. It can draw out the process, it can create conflict, it can create all sorts of just problems that are not necessary.
Right, that can be avoided.
Right.
And I think that we overall think that probate should be avoided.
Right.
When it can be.
Right.
I know there's some situations that with clients looked at and said, this wouldn't be horrible, right?
Right.
This is what probate would look like. It's really a judgment call for you. If this is something that your family member could go through or could handle with help, then yeah, maybe probate's not a big deal and not a problem.
Right. But in most cases it can be avoided, and there are strategies to do that. And most of our clients, I would say, that's one of their goals is they want to avoid the probate process, make things easier for their family, avoid that confusion and just unnecessary stress and unnecessary expense. It's not horribly expensive, but if the estate's not that big, you want to have something left over for your beneficiaries. And so if you don't have to pay those expenses because you've avoided them, that's usually really attractive to clients. And I was going to say,
the one thing that we didn't touch on is probate's a public process.
Oh, yes.
So you can go onto the Register of Wills website and search up an estate, and you can get access to the will. You can get access to the accountings, and you have to pay a nominal fee.
50 cents a page.
Yeah. So where that's really concerning is for young beneficiaries, maybe folks in that 18 to 25 range that inherit a good amount of money. And we've got separate thoughts on 18 to 25-year-olds inheriting big chunks of money anyways. But those folks or vulnerable adults, really, they're great targets for scammers because they have all of their information, name, address, how much money they're coming into, all of that. And so I think that's a big driver for folks too, is wanting to not have all that information out there,
right?
Not have the world or people that want to go look know who got what and how much.
Right. And it's easier to contest wills because they're public. So, if you haven't distributed assets equally or something like that, people get really strange when someone passes away and there's money at stake and people feel slighted and they feel, so people get weird. And so that is another reason people want to avoid that public process, because it's just, it's easier to cause, it's easier for there to be conflict after the fact. And 99% of people that we talk to, I think we've each had one person, I think, that has said, I don't care, I'm dead. If my family has to go through conflict, it's no longer my problem. I would say the rest of our clients really want to avoid that and make things as easy as possible, as peaceful as possible, so that their family can grieve and mourn their loss and not have to worry about all of this administrative stuff and timelines and deadlines and that type of thing. So
I've definitely had someone who is very familiar with the probate process say, it'll be good for my kids to go through that.
And that is a rarity, but yes.
It's very rare. Yes. But, so that's, I think, everything probate related. If you want to learn more about probate or wills, trusts, estate planning in general, come join us next Tuesday for Tacos and Trusts. We're going to have tacos and margaritas here in the office and talk about all things estate planning and answer your questions so you can get started and really, start from a place of education and empowerment. Yes. So have a great week. Talk to you soon.